Module 4 for automation will be the afternoon of day 2. Don't worry if you don't start this till like 1:30, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. You should be able to finish it. I've scoped this down just a little bit. Okay, so automation. We want to be able to select the appropriate tools for automation, explain a lot about Flow Designer, Action Designer, and Integration Hub. I do not have a lab on Integration Hub. I am going to be developing an entire course around that though. So we have a survey level look at our automation capabilities. There's a lot more than this, but here's our overview slide. I think this is new for London, although I'm starting to use this slide in multiple places. In here, you see kind of data bars in here. I'm using this to identify the various kind of levels of complexity or expertise you need to use each one of these options. Flow Designer and Integration Hub have been around for a release or two, but they are our newer capabilities in the platform, and all new innovations will really be funneled and concentrated in those two applications. So we dive into Flow Designer and we kind of look at the overall vision for that. I think we had this slide before. It may be cleaned up a little bit, but this is actually from a Rebecca Diaz presentation from Knowledge in Knowledge 18. So we look at the overall vision, what we're trying to do there. A little bit more detail about how it can be triggered, what we do, conditional processing, branching, etc. We can see the roles that we have available to us, and then we can see samples. And I've tried to make sure that the screenshot incorporates some of the newer features that were added in the London release. So you'll see annotations in there. You'll see the phases. So we've got an approval phase and a fulfillment phase. Here's an annotation, and then we've got multiple levels of branching in there. And really point out to students that this is very, very human readable. I actually showed this to my husband, who can't really type, between you and me, and he was able to understand exactly what this flow did. So that was pretty useful. I have the animation in here still for the Flow Designer user interface that I had from Kingston, just to show how the data pane works and pulling across the data pills or using the data pill picker with our drilling down capabilities. It's very important that you show students and demonstrate how that works before they get tripped up in the lab exercise about it. Okay, so they will get tripped up about that, especially the lookup record versus lookup records. And then making sure that when they create a group member record, they're pulling that from the right section in the data pane. Okay, so this is a good opportunity for a demonstration, but probably let that animation run as well. The operational view also is absolutely, kick-ass in Flow Designer here. You'll be able to drill into everything that you need to troubleshoot and validate successful operation of each time a flow is executed. So not to belabor that, we jump right into creating a flow using Flow Designer. This is the exact activity as we had before. I think I may have thrown in maybe a stage or an annotation just to touch on some of the London capabilities that were added. Once we get through that, we go into Integration Hub, where we talk about the vision. And it's important here, looking at this visual, that we stress that all of these are not built out. Okay? This is a vision statement. We have some of these in place, like the Slack integration, like the Microsoft Teams integration, and shortly we'll have the Box integration spoke as well. We will be extending each of our ServiceNow line of business applications to include Flow Designer and maybe Integration Hub spokes as well. We go into look at where you will see Integration Hub, and it's kind of like a workflow and orchestration deal that we had before, where when orchestration is enabled, we just see additional activities in our workflow interface. Same thing is true for Integration Hub and Flow Designer. When Integration Hub is enabled, we see additional spokes in our UI. The real power, though, and this is super duper cool, is the action designer. So this allows your developer people to develop custom actions and encapsulate complex processes into a single, very, very easy to use interface. What are your inputs? We do all the back end stuff for you. We spit out the output for you. With Action Designer, you'll notice that it looks a lot like the activity developer that we have for orchestration. Lots of parallels there. We have definitely minimized the core coding necessity as well. If Integration Hub is enabled, you will see a REST step and that will appear. Otherwise, we've got just this little plug for Integration Hub here. One thing to point out during class is, yes, you can use a script step to facilitate an integration without going through the Integration Hub route, paying for those licenses. However, Big Brother is watching for that, and if you use the script step to make an integration call, that will count as an Integration Hub usage of this product. So be aware, warn students. We've got kind of, here's the overall structure, inputs and outputs for the overall flow. Your individual actions have inputs and outputs, and then our individual steps within that can have inputs and outputs as well. Which brings us to our Sprint 8, where we choose one lab to complete. So in the Kingston release, we had to create an action that generated a relative date time. We've got that. That includes some scripting steps in there to generate the output. Okay, a little bit of a pro code thing, but we also have introduced a no code option to create an action that just adds a user to a group. So provide a user, provide a group, boom, they're added. You don't have to know that group members are stored in the sysuser GR member table. You can just say, oh, add a user to a group. So it's a no code alternative for that. Super quick, super easy, but it gets all the key points across about Action Designer. Finally, we end with some heuristics on selecting automation capabilities based on kind of what the customer is running or what your environment is running and some of the preconditions there. So Flow Designer versus Workflow, we've got some guidance that we worked out with our product managers on when to kind of fall back to using Workflow. And then we've done the same type of thing for orchestration versus Integration Hub with some high level kind of guidance for when to fall back to use orchestration rather than tackling something in Integration Hub. And that pretty much ends the automation module here. We have some developer portal courses as well as some really, really good content on YouTube and a Now Support channel about Flow Designer. There are some additional labs in community from Knowledge 18 CreatorCon. So if you have students that attended that, they can access that on-demand content. And then try your hand at it. It's super duper easy. Takes a little bit of getting used to in your personal developer instance. That is the automation.